The year is 1683. The walls of Vienna are trembling under relentless cannon fire. The sky glows with smoke, and the sound of Ottoman war drums pounds like thunder across the battlefield. In our history, this siege ended in failure for the Ottomans. Europe fought back, Vienna held, and the Ottoman Empire began its long, slow decline. But what if history turned out differently? What if Vienna fell? What if, instead of retreat and decline, the Ottomans surged forward and didn't stop until all of Europe bowed before the Sultan's throne? Stay with me until the end, because if this had happened, the Europe you know today wouldn't exist. Its languages, its religions, even the very idea of the West would look utterly alien. So where does our alternate timeline split? It all begins at the Second Siege of Vienna in 1683. In reality, the Ottomans were pushed back by a last-minute coalition of European powers. A Polish king named John Sobieski led a decisive cavalry charge that broke their siege. But imagine Sobieski never arrives. Or imagine the Ottomans reinforce their army with fresh troops from the Balkans, overwhelming Vienna's defenses before Europe can respond. In this alternate chain of events, Vienna falls. And when Vienna falls, Central Europe is wide open. Hungary is absorbed, Austria collapses, and the Holy Roman Empire, already fragile, shatters under the Ottoman advance. This is the turning point, the hinge on which the entire fate of Europe swings. But once Vienna is gone, where do the Ottomans march next? From Vienna, the Ottoman armies push westward. Prague falls, Bavaria submits. The Habsburg dynasty, stripped of its Austrian base, crumbles. Europe's balance of power collapses like dominoes. France, which in our timeline often fought against the Habsburgs, now faces an empire at its doorstep that dwarfs even Louis XIV's ambitions. And here's the political twist. Instead of fighting to the death, some monarchs bend the knee. They cut deals with the Sultan in exchange for keeping their crowns as Ottoman vassals. Others resist and are swept aside. By the early 1700s, Ottoman banners are seen not just in Budapest or Belgrade, but in Paris and Rome. Even Spain and Portugal, weakened after decades of decline, cannot withstand the tide. The payoff? For the first time in history, the entire European continent is united under a single empire, the Ottoman Empire. But this isn't just about borders and kings. The real question is, what happens to European culture, religion, and daily life once the crescent moon flies over the cathedrals of Christendom? Here's where the alternate world truly takes shape. The Ottomans weren't destroyers of culture in the way some conquerors were. They ruled over diverse populations, Greeks, Armenians, Arabs, Persians, Jews, and Slavs, through a system called the millet system. Each community had autonomy, but Islam always sat at the top of the hierarchy. So, what would Europe look like under Ottoman rule? Religion. Christianity wouldn't vanish overnight, but its status changes. Churches like Notre Dame in Paris or Saint-Taine, Peter's Basilica in Rome are converted into mosques. Priests lose political influence. Islam becomes the official faith, with Christians and Jews relegated to protected but second-class status. Language. Over time, Arabic and Ottoman Turkish vocabulary seep into European languages. Imagine French spiced with Turkish loanwords, or German legal codes rewritten in Ottoman style. Architecture. European skylines transform. Gothic cathedrals sprout minarets. Baroque palaces adopt Islamic domes and courtyards. Paris looks less like the City of Lights and more like a hybrid of Istanbul and Cairo. Everyday life. Clothing shifts. Cafes and tea houses dominate European cities, blending Turkish coffee culture with European social habits. The call to prayer echoes across Rome, Paris, and Berlin 5 times a day. The payoff here is clear. Europe doesn't just fall politically, it transforms culturally into an Islamic Ottoman-led civilization. But culture is only part of the story. What happens to Europe's most explosive force, its science, philosophy, and industry, when it develops under the Ottomans? The Renaissance had already reshaped European thought by 1683. But under Ottoman rule, the Enlightenment takes on a different character. Instead of Voltaire railing against the Catholic Church, imagine philosophers working within an Islamic framework. Instead of secular revolutions, you get reformist movements blending European rationalism with Ottoman religious philosophy. The Industrial Revolution still arrives, but it isn't centered in Britain. Instead, Istanbul becomes the beating heart of global industry. Ottoman-controlled mines in Central Europe provide coal and iron. Ottoman ports dominate trade across the Atlantic and Indian Oceans. Economically, this creates a world superpower unlike anything we've known. Europe's resources, combined with Ottoman trade networks stretching from Africa to Asia, make the empire unstoppable. Here's the payoff. By the 1800s, the Ottoman Empire controls the flow of global commerce, industry, and innovation. The phrase, the Western world, doesn't exist. It's all the Ottoman world. But if Europe is Ottoman, then how does that reshape colonialism, global exploration, and the balance of power with Asia and the Americas? Quick pause. If you're fascinated by how one small change could rewrite all of history, hit that like button and subscribe. This channel is all about exploring history's biggest what-ifs, and the next one might just blow your mind. Colonialism as we know it changes dramatically. In our history, Spain, Portugal, Britain, and France dominated the New World. But in this alternate timeline, those powers either collapse or serve as Ottoman vassals. So who leads exploration? The Ottomans. Imagine fleets of Ottoman galleons sailing across the Atlantic, Islamic explorers charting the Americas, colonies in Mexico, Brazil, and the Caribbean where Arabic calligraphy decorates government buildings. Africa? The Ottomans already had influence along the North African coast. With Europe under their control, they dominate trans-Saharan trade, the gold and ivory routes, and later, sub-Saharan colonization. Asia? Here's where it gets even more dramatic. The Ottomans, already neighbors with Persia and the Mughal Empire, expand further east. By the 1700s and 1800s, they're competing with, or even absorbing, India. The balance of power shifts against China, who now faces a single Eurasian superempire stretching from Lisbon to the borders of the Pacific. The payoff, a global Ottoman hegemony, with its capital in Istanbul, directing not just Europe, but the entire world. But that raises the question. If the Ottomans rule globally, then what does modern-day Europe look like in this alternate history? Close your eyes and picture Europe today, only reimagined. Religion. Christianity survives in small enclaves, but Islam is the dominant faith. Mosques outnumber churches in Paris, Rome, and Berlin. The Pope exists, but he holds the status of a religious minority leader rather than a powerful global figure. Politics. The European Union never forms because it isn't needed. The Ottoman Empire never collapses, never fragments. Europe remains a province of a vast Islamic empire, governed from Istanbul. Culture. European languages survive, but are deeply influenced by Arabic and Turkish. Art, music, and literature reflect a fusion. Shakespeare translated into Ottoman Turkish, Beethoven composing for Ottoman courts, Da Vinci's inventions used to strengthen imperial power. Technology. The Ottomans industrialize Europe under their own terms. Modern science emerges, but shaped by Islamic philosophy rather than secular Enlightenment ideals. Here's the payoff. Modern-day Europe looks like a hybrid civilization, a mix of Middle Eastern, North African, and European traditions, all under Ottoman identity. Would this alternate world actually be better, or would it have created a darker, more oppressive global order? And that brings us to the heart of this alternate history. If the Ottomans had conquered all of Europe, the world would be utterly transformed. Christianity as we know it would be diminished. The Enlightenment and secular revolutions might never happen. Colonialism and global power would be defined not by London or Paris, but by Istanbul. But here's the haunting question. Would this world have been a golden age of unity, a super empire blending cultures across continents? Or would it have been an empire of oppression, silencing Europe's diversity under one banner? History is fragile. One battle, one siege, one decision. That's all it takes to rewrite the future. So now I turn it over to you. Would a Europe ruled by the Ottomans be better or worse than the one we live in today? Share your thoughts in the comments. I'd love to hear your take. And if you enjoyed exploring this alternate timeline, don't forget to like the video, subscribe to the channel, and hit the notification bell. We've got more history-bending what-if scenarios coming soon, and you won't want to miss them.